tackled quite. They actually defended not that badly against Hull, against Wakefield in the game that ultimately cost him. But obviously, they're the games that they need to win most of all. If you're losing those games, then you're already on the back foot when it comes to trying to edge into that back end of the 8 with all the other teams above you from last season. All doing well, and also throw in Salford and Widnes doing well. I mean, obviously Huddersfield and Leeds, but let's face it, you don't expect that to last 23 rounds.
No.
But similarly, you don't expect Salford and Widnes maybe to last 23 rounds, but you can't be making up 5-6 points to them by a month into the season. You're going to struggle already. They didn't clear ahead those teams by that much last year. So I think the lack of addressing the problems from last year and the lack of progressing any of the players, I don't think any of the players really improved under his coaching, other than maybe Liam Salter, you can say, has done quite well. But other than
Dixon, but
has he though?
Not really. Well,
same old Kieran Dixon.
By increments, maybe. Yeah.
Electric and awful in 2-minute slots
in the same tiny period of time. Yeah.
So that's why it didn't surprise me. I wonder why it came so early, though. I suppose maybe they just couldn't hack that Wakefield loss. Obviously,
my thinking is it's just a case
because they drew with Castleford. They should have been beaten by Castleford. You would argue in terms of the defensive performance. Castleford probably should have done better, but the conditions didn't help. They lost to Warrington, who were up there at the top and looking really strong. So it's a little bit premature on that regard, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad move for them to do.
Yeah. Okay.
I
mean, I tend to feel sorry for Chris Chester, but only because I think he's a nice bloke, not because I actually think he's going to necessarily progress Hull KR and take him to the next level. I think what they as a club are investing in and developing with, when you look at what's going on in terms of infrastructure in the stadium there, is actually lifting them from kind of that bottom 4 Super League and making them kind of a threat for, finishing in that kind of, lower end of the top 8. That was what the plan will have been, I think, in terms of medium-term development for the club. And he has overseen a period of time where, yes, they got to the Challenge Cup final, and I think Hull KR were always going to be one of those teams that could win a one-off game. But I think that papered over the cracks a little bit in terms of, as you alluded to, the defensive weaknesses. Bringing in Terry Campese, who's obviously an experienced campaigner and a guy who really bought into being a Hull KR player, which impressed me, has still spent a significant portion of his time getting paid, taking up some cap space, and sitting in the physio's room. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's his fault, but a lot of things have contrived to... It's a questionable
decision when it's a player who's had the checkered injury record he's had.
Precisely. And I just question whether or not Chris Chester was fully up to it. And actually, if you're going to sack someone and try and reinvigorate your club, I think you're better to do it early than, say, languish down the bottom end of the league for the next 3 months and then make a decision come May where it's basically all over by the shouting. If they do it quickly and act fast now, they probably still have some room to do a bit of recruiting.
Well, they're not bottom, are they? So...
And guide it, and they aren't bottom. No, and they're looking down on some pretty big names in rugby league.
Well, you certainly you got excited about the story in terms of getting your poll out.
There was only one thing I was going to get my poll out for this week, I would have said.
Yeah, well, it was definitely the...
Whipped it out. Whipped my poll out early doors this week and gave you a few options with it. So the question was, who do you think will be the next coach of Hull KR? Now, I based my options on the odds that I got off the Ladbrokes website. So I went with Steve McNamara, who at the time was the favourite, Justin Morgan, Franny Cummins, because that was also funny, but he was in at third favourite.
Who'd have thought you would be getting your poll out over McNamara and Cummins?
And then other. Yes, well... I don't, as much as I want to see it inflicted...
The 2 least successful coaches in Bradford Bowl.
As much as I want to see them inflicted on someone else, it's a bit schadenfreude, isn't it? And then other, which would have encompassed people like Paul Rowley and what have you. And other was the overwhelming winner. 68% of the vote went to other, 14 went to McNamara, 7 to Justin Morgan, and 11 to Franny Cummins.
That sort of tells me that there wasn't a lot of consensus with the bookies on those choices.
There was a lot of kind of 8-1 out to sort of 12-1 odds, so they weren't really...
So the race sort of closed up. I'm guessing people like Poaching, Peacock, and some of the assistants knocking around.
Peacock was,
in the division below maybe as well.
Peacock was about 18-1 as I recall. So... Well, that's about right. I'd have been surprised if Jamie Peacock got the job.
Well, we had a few tweets come in. Neil Johnson at Let's Go Johnsons came back with Agar and Rowley have also been mentioned as people. Dr. Bob Phillips came back with the morally upright Paul Rowley, he thought should give a shout. And Dave G at DG Revo. Thanks for getting in touch, Dave. That's a new one on us, but he said Rowley as well. So, yeah. What's the crack there then? Why wasn't he in our list?
Well, he wasn't one of the favourites, Paul Rowley. Do we think he wasn't even in the top sort of 10 to 15? Now,
has that got anything to do with maybe the suggestion that he's going to be coaching the Canada side, that connects the Toronto-based side that's looking to come into League One next year?
Yeah, that's something that's come up on social media over the last day or so. Not least of which because of the column that Derek Butcher made, Derek Beaumont even. Derek Butcher's a friend of ours from years ago. Derek Beaumont, who is the Leeds Centurions chairman, who's not a friend of ours, wrote a pretty disparaging article in the Lee Observer.
About his best mate?
Basically saying that, about his best mate roles.
Crazy.
Best mate roles. So it seems like that's something that Paul Rowe's been lined up for, and good luck to him. So moving on, other news coming out of the NRL, England hooker Josh Hodgson has signed a new deal at the Canberra Raiders that will keep him at the club until the end of 2018. It's great to get something sorted for the next few years, he said. The club was eager for me to stay, and I was eager to stay as well because I love it here in Canberra. Congratulations, it's a witness, and good piece of business for Canberra, who have got a little bit of an English contingent there now with Elliot Whitehead in town too. But actually, with guys like Blake Austin and stuff knocking around at Canberra, they look like they could be an improving side.
And they obviously see Josh Hodgson as someone who's integral to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good luck to him.
Exactly. Okay, Sheffield Eagles have signed Australian halfback Rhys Jacks until the end of the 2016 season. Jacks joined the Eagles after an initial 3-week trial, which followed a month's trial at fellow Kingston Press Championship side Bradford Bulls. The 26-year-old Australian previously played at South Logan Magpies in the Queensland Cup and qualifies to play for Canada, who he recently played for in the 2017 World Cup qualifiers. So, good luck to Rhys Jacks as he undertakes his career as a professional league player at Sheffield.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
He made his debut, didn't he? He came off the bench midway through the first half on Friday night's game. So, yeah, big news for Canada RL all over the place, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. Lee have drafted in winger Richie Owen from Wakefield and halfback Lewis Charnock from St Helens on 1-month loan deals to help address their injury issues. Oliver Roberts this week announced that he'd signed a new deal at Huddersfield through to the end of 2019. And Bradford Bulls launched their women's side this weekend at the home game against Leeds Centurions. First professional side in the game to have its own women's team, Mark.
Yeah, so do you know much more about this?
Nope, you have all my information.
Okay.
So congratulations to the Bulls and good luck to the Bradford Bulls ladies.
They're going to be playing in the same kit, I understand.
Yes, they were photographed in it.
Which is nice.
Yes, so I'm sure we can all get behind the girls. Right, and finally, North Sydney Bears could be set for a shock return to the NRL via the Gold Coast Titans. North Sydney were a foundation club formed in 1908, but were forced to merge with Manly to form the Northern Eagles in 2000. The Northern Eagles, of course, disbanded in 2002 with the NRL licence returning to Manly. Since then, the Bears have operated purely as a New South Wales Cup team and as a feeder club for different NRL sides. For nearly 2 decades, there has been a movement set up has been a movement to set up the Central Coast Bears on New South Wales Central Coast, but now the Bears may return to the top flight through a takeover of the Gold Coast Titans. The Titans have struggled on and off the field in recent seasons and are now owned by the NRL. They went into voluntary administration last year. Central Coast Bears CEO Greg Florimo believes that the Gold Coast franchise will succeed if the NRL gives the green light to his organisation's bold proposal to partner with the Titans and rebrand the franchise as the Gold Coast Bears. The Central Coast Bears controversially pipped for the NRL licence that was handed to the Titans in 2007 are one of the budding franchises should the governing body expand beyond 16 teams. So interesting times.
Yeah, definitely. They were sort of treated a little bit like Gateshead were by, or Sheffield were by Huddersfield, or Gateshead were by Hull in terms of the 2000 merger. But they've been slowly trying to grow into a viable brand. It's just, difficult to get the interest going, but maybe if they can carry some of their existing support up the coast a little bit further to the Gold Coast from the Central Coast, maybe they could be more there could be more in it than the Titans. I can't imagine any Titans existing fan base being so staunch against the idea because, you know, they're mostly plastic chairs.
Because of their proud heritage.
Exactly, yeah. So it'd be an interesting one to see. It'd be certainly nice to see, you know, if they do change, if there is a change of team. I always like it when it goes back to being a more traditional team rather than bringing in something new unnecessarily.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think
so rather than take the Gold Coast franchise and move it
to Perth or somewhere,
which is a bit more of a risk at this stage. Although Adelaide had a team years and years ago, there was the Perth team, but
there's reasons they didn't last, isn't there? You know, and I think staying within kind of your catchment area is probably the way to go to at least try and ensure some sustainability.
Yeah, exactly, and it does give that heritage back to the team, the colours, all of that, which is nice to see.
Absolutely,
we'd all like everyone
to succeed, don't we?
With loads of areas covered, but I suppose Queensland needs that other professional team.
Yes,
and it just needs to have someone who can generate some support for the fucking bunch of them.
Yeah, let's see how they do. Okay, so that's the news from around the world of rugby league. Let's take a look back now at round 3 of Super League. Okay, so round 3 of Super League kicked off this week on Thursday night with 2 games. The first of which was a 24-31 defeat by the Castleford Tigers away at Hull FC, Mark. I'm assuming you've watched this back because you'll have been at the DW watching Wigan. But it was just a fantastic advert for the sport. A thoroughly enjoyable game of rugby league. It kind of had everything going for it. There was some good play, there was some exciting broken play stuff. Luke Gale had a good game. Hull looked, every inch the strong pack, but Castleford got off to a flying start and really put them under the cosh. The league changed hands a couple of times. There was a drop goal to finish it all off. It was just a great little bit of Thursday night's entertainment, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did watch it when I got back. I watched bits of it on skipping through and stuff, so I didn't get my full focus, but by the end of the game, I was trying not to want to go to bed.
Yes.
But had to watch it. It was
compelling. It was compelling stuff, wasn't it?
Even though I knew the outcome, it was still thrilling to watch that sort of last 20 minutes or so unfold.
Yeah.
It was, like you say, the most thrilling game so far this season. Just over 10,000 there to watch it. Hopefully, no one with epilepsy was in the crowd.
Not at the beginning, Christ. You do have to avert your eyes there. That wouldn't do you much good.
But after the fun and hijinks from the light display, it was just really good stuff. Denny Solomona. I mean, we made him a shout at the start of the season as a potential for top try scorer. I wish I'd put a bet on it.
The thing that impresses me most about Denny Solomona is how strong he appears to be now as well. He's not the biggest winger out there. He's tall and he's rangy and he's athletic, but actually his physical strength as well to kind of shrug off big guys and stuff in tackles is really impressing me as well.
As well as being elusive and seeming to be more and more intelligent with his positioning. That intercept try came a long way off his wing to read the play, but also the way he's finding little spaces for himself out wide. I mean, he looks like he's going to be prone to the odd error, like when he nearly dropped it when he went to play it out was like his first try.
Yes.
But yeah, he was really good. Hitchcock's on the other wing came in late.
Yeah,
and,
the young lad that they signed from Featherstone. Played very, very well. I thought Ben Crooks had a good game as well for Castleford.
Was it from Featherstone? I thought.
Yeah, they signed from Fev.
Oh, right, was he? No, that's someone else I'm thinking of. Yeah, no, you're right.
Are you thinking of Jamal Coleman?
No.
All right, fair enough.
I was thinking of the other guy they signed from York, Minikin, but that's a different person altogether.
Entirely, without even a similar sounding name.
I mean, Hull as well had the moments in attack.
Yeah.
I think it's symptomatic of kind of where they've been at, though, Hull. They have been playing well, but they haven't played against a side who've been as consistent throughout the game in not making so many mistakes.
Yeah.
And what that's allowed them to do is get away with a few defensive lapses and holes because they've managed to just about cover them up and then explode onto the back end. Castleford did a little bit better both ways than what Hull have faced so far over the whole 80 minutes, and I think that's what what saw them through in the end. I was really impressed by Castleford being able to do that and maintain a level against what has been a big rampaging and yet deft and skillful on the back end Hull FC team so far.
Yeah, and Hull FC was certainly that for large periods of time in the game. You know, the forward pack just did get them going. Guys like Taylor and Watson, you know, C. Kamani played fantastic well. Frank Pritchard came off the bench in the good game. Jamie Shaw for me is just improving exponentially year on year as far as I'm